Excellent, excellent. All right. The timer is going. That means I have 14 minutes and 5 seconds to talk. Um, okay. What am I going to talk about tonight? I'm going to talk about how you get bored of your senses. You know, no matter, I was just thinking I had a really productive day today, and that was good. I had a, I do not feel like, well, I mean, but I didn't do any less or any more than I usually do day to day. I was the same level of productive, but for some reason I feel better about it than I usually do. I'm not sure why that is, but one thing that I've really been not struggling with, but one thing that I've been thinking a lot about is just how, we have our senses. We know the things to feel. There are no new sensual things that I feel like I'm not aware of. I know that seems very weird, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that, you know, I feel like I've smelled everything that the world has to offer. I feel like I've felt everything that the world has to offer. And it's not that I think that, I've done all I need to, but at the same time, I don't feel like anything is presenting itself that needs or calls for me to be experiencing it continuously. And new things like, I don't know. I've never been. I mean, there are some things that I try not to taste, but generally speaking, I think I'm a pretty not so picky eater. And I've just tried everything that I have available to try to me. I guess I guess one thing I should do is just go outside of those boundaries and find new things to eat, or smell, or feel, or see. I guess I don't know. I just um, once it's not. I guess there's just something kind of annoying about running out of, or just I'm not excited to fulfill the senses anymore. Holidays are a really good example of this. I feel like holidays are something that just aren't special to me anymore because I feel like I've always experienced them, and I'm not going to stop experiencing them. So I know what it feels like. Big significant things. I know what it's like to, I don't know. I guess, the more experiences that you have in life, the more you're going to be aware of how something feels, and therefore you're going to lose enchantment for it. And that's a little sad. Um, Disenchantment. I think that was a big thing I learned in my 20s is, the world used to be so big and bright, and I think that's obviously different for everyone, how are able to see the world in that way. But losing that losing that brightness, losing that, colorful lens that you have going for yourself when you're younger, it I wish that I was still able to perceive things like that. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on this recording, but there was I always wondered about I always like to use theater as an example here. Is that when I first got into theater, I was blown away with everything in there. It was like magic. I didn't know how everything worked. The people there were just so talented and they knew exactly what they were doing. And now I just feel like I understand it. Um, I understand how theater works. I know I know what the actors need to do to get ready for their role. I know what the costume designers need to do to, get everything ready for the show. I know what the lighting and sound designers are doing up in their booths. Um, I know how the pit band is rehearsing. I know pretty much every part of a theatrical production at this point. And that's really cool because I feel like I am very able to create things easily with that knowledge, but at the same time, I don't feel like I'm getting that magic from those shows anymore. And I'm sure, I'm sure there's some kind of mental gymnastic I could do to help me get that back, but for the most part, I just feel like, I get it. I understand it. It's a formula. It is no longer a incantation like spell. It's not a magic spell that you cast and like, things unexplicable things happen. I know how it works. I know why it works. I know why it does all the things. So therefore, anyway, what else is there to talk about? Uh, it is just after midnight. We have one more day in this apartment, which is cool. Yeah, I guess it's all empty right now. So sad, but that's okay. I'm gonna be living with a friend for a week, and then after that week, I'm going to be heading to Amarillo with one friend, and then I'll be making my journey up north. I'll be passing through Mississippi, stay there for a couple weeks, and then I'll be heading up to the the hometown, I guess, see my family and everything like that. That'll be fun. Um, yeah. Another thing that I learned in my 20s. Ooh, I definitely learned this one, is that because so just so like for context, I am someone who very much enjoyed his hometown growing up. You know, I don't think hometowns are a place that you want to stay in your 20s, especially like in a place like New Hampshire. But I will say that I very much enjoyed my time there growing up there. And, mixed with that, wonderment that I was talking about just a little second ago, definitely hand in hand with my experience. And growing up and getting older, and you see all your friends either, hiding in well, lack of seeing your friends, they just end up hiding in their house or they move away or they have kids and they're too busy and just everything happens and then people get fatter and older and um you know even if I saw the same people that I knew growing up, they wouldn't be the same. And I mean, whether or not we remain friends and we find more things to bond over, that's always the goal. But my friends that I knew growing up, they are not that spry, rambunctious version of themselves anymore. They are older, they're more tired, they're more serious, they're more worked. Just everything that goes into, being an adult and having to deal with things like that. Um, ugh. Anyway, so I'll be going home for the summer months and probably spend like a month there or something like that, and then I'll head back down. Maybe a month and a half. I'm not sure yet. TBD. I just had to be back here for September for some rehearsals and everything like that. But yeah, your home. At least my home is not the same, and I don't feel like it's the same. And every single time I'm away from it, I always think, "Oh man, I really miss my home. I'm feeling kind of homesick because there's just so much there's so much there that I remember." And then I go back to a place like that and everything is just not that way anymore. Businesses of people that I know all shut down. Um, I mean, heck, even the kids I used to teach like theater to and stuff, they're all like in college or graduated even. Um, and whenever I go there too, I just don't feel like I see a lot of kids running around. And, that's not something I look forward to every day, seeing a bunch of kids running around. But I just feel like when I was a teenager, in, my hometown, I saw a lot of kids, or I was always out and about. I was always running and causing mischief. And so it feels weird that no one's doing that right now. Or at least I don't see it. I don't know. Maybe we can blame phones. Maybe we can blame overprotective parents. Maybe we can blame just, the weather. I don't know what we're gonna blame. All I know is that I perceive it in a way that it seems a lot more ghost towny than how I remember it being when I was younger. Um, you know, the the buildings are disappearing or being replaced with something. Uh, yeah, yeah. There's no one there. There's no one there anymore. And I am going to get back there this summer, and I am going to be so happy for the first day. And then immediately, once that second day hits, it's like, now I remember why I left. And that's, I don't know. I feel like this is something that, everyone understands. I feel like this is something that everyone to some extent has experienced. But for me, it just feels so, it's just such a strong feeling. And it keeps bringing me back. I mean, it doesn't help. I mean, my family's there. So if obviously I'm going to go there, but I don't know if I would call this a curse or not. I don't know if I would call this something that, is really like that big of a deal. Like everyone has nostalgia. Um just for some reason nostalgia, like even when I was living in Beijing, China, freaking Beijing, I was riding around having the time of my life. I could afford a lot. Job kept me entertained. I had a lot of friends there, and for some reason I also fantasized about, you know, small town New Hampshire. And it's so funny because like while I was there, I would relate a lot of what I was seeing back to things that I saw at home, like, oh, look at these theaters and everything like that. Oh, these are so big compared to the ones back home too. Like, oh, I bet the ones back home, like, I had built it up like, oh, even Beijing, China can't compete with what is in New Hampshire. And that just was completely annihilated when I came back. And, I performed at some really cool stages in Beijing. I got to work with, I mean, just the city was huge, huge, huge city. And I can't believe that I blindsided myself enough to not realize that that was where I should have been and mentally. That was the moment. That is where I needed to be. I needed to be present, but I wasn't. I was thinking about hometown. And then when I got back to hometown, and I remember because COVID happened in China, then I came back to the US before lockdown happened. And then when lockdown happened here, I was in Texas at the time. I had to fly back to, Massachusetts where my family was. And then all of a sudden during COVID, I was with my family and I was, you know, I had moved back to my hometown and I stayed with a friend. I was doing a theater show. And even though it's, I mean, COVID's a weird thing. I mean, but it doesn't affect building sizes or anything like that. And so I'd ride my bike around and I would pass by all those places that I'm like, oh man, I missed so much when I was in China. And just not as impressive as the things in China. So it's this weird little curse, blessing, whatever it is. I mean, it's definitely a source of passion for me. I could write about it all day. I find it very interesting, lots of good memories, and maybe that's what it is that in order for me to accept it, I need to write more stories about it. And there's lots of like cartoonists and comic strip artists who like write things about towns that they grew up in their childhood. I don't think that's a very unusual thing, and I think that's what I need to do. That is where I need to take that feeling and start applying it, because once I finally get the idea out in a story, I'm able to not think about it anymore. And I think at least the philosophical like quandary of it all. Um Maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe I need to start using that as sources for some writing I do. So anyway, that 15 minutes is now up. I'm glad that that went by so fast. So bye.